You don't think that I wouldn't trade a little bit of Timber's gayness for 20 years extra?
That's not even on the table.
That's such an insane hypothetical. Guys, we've got bad news. We're so sorry. The video you're about to watch, I think a setting just got changed on our camera. Also, our camera is 10 years old and a piece of shit. And what you're about to watch is like blurry.
I thought it was just because we're like Bigfoot and cannot actually be photographed other than blurry.
Pin us down, yeah. It was like watchable enough, in my opinion, to still be worth posting because like the audio is fine. I mean, as fine as our audio situation ever is.
Anyway, that's enough about that. Let's go.
Sorry.
All right, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's cold outside. It's cold out there every day. What is this, Miami Beach? Not hardly.
Thank you for bringing that energy to the intro. I, as your co-host and the audience, really appreciate it. Also, speaking of being camp counselors, we're going to Costa Rica in September. Wow. And you guys can join us. As of right now, we haven't launched the trip yet, and we expect that when we do, it's going to sell out pretty quick. So if you're interested, you should click the link in our bio, give us your email, so then you'll be alerted when the trip goes live. And it's worth it, because the first 8 people that sign up will save $100. And there's going to be 20 spots total, so competition could be fierce.
Wow, solid intro, straight to business. We're like girl boss extraordinaires.
Yes. Also, not to be inaccessible, but you'll probably need $3,000 for the trip. Just being upfront with you. So like, don't leave comments saying you can't. Like, we get it. We wouldn't be able to afford it either.
This is the only way we can afford to travel.
This is the only way we can do the trip either. So like, the poors among you, we totally get it. We'd be right with you, but. It'll break my heart if I read a bunch of comments about it, so
fuck you guys.
Only engage if you have a lot of disposable income because you have a bullshit tech job where they pay you way too much. That's our target audience for this trip.
Let's
Couples,
go, tech bros.
Singles, everyone. Today we are, as the ex-Mormon YouTubers that we are, but one day maybe won't be, we are watching a Jubilee video where they had ex-Mormons and Mormons come together to debate issues. As is often the case with the videos we end up making on this channel, I've been too scared to watch it alone. It's also because I really think I have a sickness where like I have to incessantly comment when I watch things, and I would either need to be like with Jared commenting the whole time and he's like, can you stop pausing Love Island please, to psychoanalyze every single thing everyone says, or if it's you, I'm like sending you 5 million texts and it's like Tana has a life outside of this. So we're watching it together with you guys, for those of you who share in that.
We'll see how this goes.
Oh, this was the thing that you got cast for, right? That we did that audition for.
Oh yeah, we were scheduled to attend this, and then we were like, eh.
Well, I think this was another filming that they ended, or maybe it's just coming out. No, because John has his new facial hair in it, so I think they filmed it twice.
Oh, this is a new one.
Not certain. Let me know if you know. I think they scrapped the first one though for some reason.
Oh, interesting.
If I'm remembering rightly, just because John has his new facial hair in this one.
Well, then I'm glad we didn't go.
Yeah, so this could have been us, and I'm glad it's not because it seems so stressful. Remember when we did that Dr. Phil subsidiary show that we didn't know was hosted by a Mormon?
Oh yeah.
And then it just ended up being like, come together as one, and with like the guy who hosted the show being like the guru.
Yeah. Though we did make some very compelling points, I felt like.
Not me. They painted me as the person who's like, oh, so you think it's fine to get an abortion 10 seconds before birth?
And you were like, yeah.
And I was like, don't go there. I'm not going there. I'm not addressing it. We're not talking about abortion today. Yeah, so we're going to watch this video. I think it's very interesting. I imagine potentially one of the reasons the original episode got scrapped, or why this is kind of like a weird video for Jubilee to do anyways, because it's like very sensitive, I feel like, having Mormons and ex-Mormons come together. Mm-hmm. In a way that doesn't invalidate religious. I feel like there probably will be some invalidation that happens, but it's just like interesting that this has like entered the mainstream culture enough to where people are going to see that like Mormons have become more mainstream, you know? I hear about soaking on just like random podcasts that I listen to constantly. That's like now one of the cornerstones of like mainstream perception of Mormonism. Mitt Romney's out and soaking is in. So this
notoriously in.
Notoriously.
Not going out and back in. It's just in.
Simply in. Yep. We are going to have to watch the video at 1.5 speed unless that becomes completely insufferable, because it's a 50-minute video. So now it will only be a 30-minute video. And
my doctor has recommended getting no more than 2 minutes of Cardin Ellis a year.
Tana's not allowed to watch it 100%. Oh, it's Cardin and Quaker in it, right?
Yeah, Midnight Mormons.
We generally don't do commentary on them, but we will give commentary on this Jubilee video and this Jubilee video only.
I am saying that
That's a yes or no. That's a yes or no. Do I believe that Heavenly Father would keep her out of the celestial kingdom if she
If she
decides not
continues to have lesbian relationships.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Gen, and I explore social and
Straight in there. Okay, so that was just we'll wait for that bit.
controversial issues through both sides. And I'll be moderating this episode of Middle Ground, Mormons versus ex-Mormons. And the first prompt is, Mormonism is a cult.
It's interesting that, sorry, I'm trying not to give too much commentary too soon, but it's like, I'm assuming Mormons aren't behind this production, so it is kind of a bit weird, like exploiting Mormon trauma for this show. It's like, it's not, I mean, I guess it is a controversial issue, but it's also just like, I don't know, it's kind of random to have outsiders come in and moderate this debate.
You know, maybe there's a lot of ex-Mormons in LA. Maybe they were like, you know, it is interesting. And it is America's religion. It's like a notoriously, it's an American religion. It's like America is the heart not only of Christianity, but of the history of humankind. The fucking Garden of Eden was in Missouri.
Yeah.
And we have the actual rocks that Adam did sacrifices on. Never mind that there's fossils in them, which would mean that death predated Adam and it unravels the whole thing. But I digress. Let's go.
That's why they didn't put you on this show.
Yep.
Mormonism is a cult, yes or no?
In as much as cult is a useful term.
Yeah, my answer is yes. And it says on this screen, community results, yes is 78% of people, no 22% of people.
It's a high control, relatively new religious movement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, cult at this point, I always just say high control group. It's like firmly in the high control group territory. Let's keep watching, I guess.
You know, I think some of the things that are important to pay attention to are like...
Oh, so they just have a roundtable discussion.
On the left is Liz Gunnell, my step-cousin.
Oh, that's your step cousin?
Yeah, we found out in the DMs, I was like, wait, my dad's stepdad is a Gunnell.
Oh, very fun.
Turns out we're related, and her dad knows me, and I've been to their house, and he's like, he is so evil, like, don't associate with him.
Because he was ex-Mormon.
Yeah.
critical things in your life that you're told how you're supposed to do them, right? Like your sexuality, the way you dress, what you eat.
What underwear you wear, what made me finally, because it was hard to admit, growing up Mormon, it was hard to admit that it was a cult, but I think when you look at, again, the critical thinking, the lack of it, I think is a big red flag.
I feel like with Mormonism and growing up in that culture, which is that word right there, I had no issue stepping forward, but not necessarily to specifically focus on the negative connotation, but really just what the word is. Let's call it what it is.
I'll just speak kind of from a psychological perspective because that's my background. Does the organization,
I'm just going to speak as Dr. John Dehlin right now.
withhold information from its members with the intent of controlling the thoughts of the members? Does the organization manipulate the members through emotion? And then do they have excessive control of the behavior? And while it's deeply offensive to tell anyone they're a member of a cult, no one's going to ever say they're a member of a cult because no one thinks they're in a cult.
Can we have the disagreeers step forward?
I'm so glad John's here. I love it. Everyone's done a great job, but like that is like the exact way I need that to be explained in this situation, or something in me is like, no, like people aren't gonna get it. Watch our John Dehlin roast if interested. It's in the description box. It's one of our funniest videos ever.
So I'm a convert to the church, and
So is it basically just all the ex-Mormons think it's a cult and all the Mormons think it isn't?
Yeah.
If so, fun. They don't have that one Mormon that's like, well, the meaning of the word cult is this, so we proudly stand as a cult.
born and raised in a partner family, lived a gay lifestyle before I joined the church, and it's a little.
Oh God, I just always see myself in the convert thing of like, I actually wasn't born Mormon and I lived a certain lifestyle before I joined the church, so I have a unique perspective on the fact that this is actually a really healthy and good organization.
Mm-hmm. It's like just because your life may have been unhelpful or like unhealthier before, and they helped you get organized in some ways, or find some sense of purpose or whatever. It's like
there are millions of ways to live a life, and only some of them are Mormon ways. And it's like people compare this one way that they lived life to as if it's like it's just a false dichotomy, right? Of like the way my life was before Mormonism versus Mormonism.
It's a little disingenuous to me when people say that the church tried to hide stuff from me, because I grew up in a family that was very stereotypical. So it was just very strict, and I remember things being talked about like polygamy, like lots of sensitive church history topics.
So it was a convert.
he is, and I think that's what he's saying is like when during the investigation process they didn't hide anything they told me about polygamy.
Oh, they were like Joseph Smith married a 14-year-old
I
when they
doubt
were
it.
investigating. That did not happen when I was converting.
It's so, just think about it for a second. If someone's like, I would know if my organization wasn't telling me something because they always tell me everything. It's like, you wouldn't know about the stuff they didn't tell you. So the fact that we all know about polygamy, right? Like every Mormon knows about it because my whole life people are like, so how many moms do you have? And I was like, meh. But but the fact remains is the church did not tell me about the details of polygamy and what it actually looked like and how it actually affected church history.
It's kind of an insane statement for him to say, I think it's hypocritical to say that the church hides stuff. I mean, like, there are so many receipts. Like, even if you are a believer, there are, like, you know, fully church approved. So there is extensive evidence that the church has hid stuff.
But you don't know that until you go looking for it and you talk to ex-members or whatever.
Yeah. It's just interesting in this current climate because I'm always like, genuinely, I don't know what Mormons know anymore. Because, like, since we left, it's so different now, the informational landscape. And the apologetics have had to change accordingly. We'll see what else he has to say.
Like lots of sensitive church history topics growing up. And that's partially why when I distanced myself from Christianity generally to go live a gay lifestyle, I really had concerns with the church.
Oh no, to go live a gay lifestyle? Okay, so he was Christian, raised Christian, went off and lived a gay lifestyle, presumably had a bad time because, you know, he came from a deeply homophobic background, and then he became Mormon.
And is
he a gay Mormon now?
I doubt he deconstructed Christianity if he's just hopping into...
Damn, the plot fucking thickens. This is actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be kind of milquetoast.
But ultimately, knowing those things only strengthened my testimony when I came back to
No! Put that on your ex-woman bingo card.
Knowing that all the leaders of the church circa 1850 were married to literal children, some of whom were Native American who they snatched from their parents, actually strengthens my testimony. Yeah, the last time that God interfered in the events of humankind to send an angel with a drawn sword to really make a dramatic change, it wasn't to protect children from predators. It was actually to make sure that Joseph Smith was able to marry children. And that actually just fills my heart with so many warm fuzzies that I know for certain that I don't need to question anything that these wonderful people are telling me.
What we have to reflect on is how nothing invites the Holy Ghost into your life like reflecting on generations of church prophets and apostles teaching that God told them that black people were inferior and that's why they can't. It just strengthens my testimony.
It does. I'm like, wow, they really were prophets of God. They really did foresee the future.
I completely left that lifestyle behind, and of course I still have same-sex attraction, but I am definitely happier now being married to a woman, having kids.
Oh God, this is taking turn after turn. I was not expecting this type of person on this Jubilee thing. I'm so much happier now being married to a woman.
Oh.
I guess we don't know that he could be bisexual or...
Sure.
Ooh.
Yeah. But go watch the Pray the Gay Away documentary. Is that what it's called? Did you watch that one?
I actually don't think I've watched that one.
It's just about all the Christian, about the ex-gay movement and how it's just like full of self-loathing people who are like keep relapsing and in some case turn abusers because there's no like healthy outlet for their...
Oh yeah. It's also such a tough one with saying like you become happier, because I would probably say that when I joined the church, I did become happier because I had a sense of purpose and I had a community and I had belonging. But that's not really a good indication that like this is a good organization. It's just like your psyche found what it needed in that time period, and that's why I don't regret my time in Mormonism, because it's like your psyche just seeks out what it needs, and then hopefully you can graduate from that and move through the stages of faith. But damn, this is juicy.
And I think Mormonism does have a particular charm in that it's like very like, it is community based. The sobriety for a lot of people coming from substance abuse backgrounds are like, oh shit, I need a sober community that's gonna like help me be a good business person and like get a leg up in the material world. And Mormons are notoriously kind of like that's the culture. So I get that there's like attractive qualities to it, but yeah, like you said, that doesn't mean all the problematic aspects just go away. You don't need the LDS church. You need community. You need purpose. You need self-expression.
Do you remember what this guy's name is?
I don't. Did they even say everyone's name?
I think they did put a banner up, but...
Being married to a woman, having kids, than I was with my boyfriends.
When I think of a cult, I think of an organization that's really controlling, and they don't let you exercise freedom or.
Same girl, same.
What is more controlling than prescribing your underwear in a ceremony where they're literally dressing you and washing all the parts of your body and bringing you in a holy embrace and got you dressed up in a baker's hat and pantomiming your own death should you dare speak about it?
Yeah, but Quaker's like, but nobody stepped in and stopped me from doing a COVID super spread event in 2020, so I'm not being controlled. I do what I want. And he's not wrong. He probably does do what he wants.
Exercise freedom or autonomy. They control how you think. They control what you say and how you say it. But if I look at Mormon culture,
John.
I like to bear my testimony. I know the church is true. I love my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters. I know Gordon B. Hinckley is a true prophet. I love in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. They give you the exact lines you have to say of things that you know, despite never having been given actual evidence to their.
Yeah, but
reality.
Quaker is someone who takes things and gives them his own twist. So I can see how people convince themselves of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because like he probably doesn't allow himself or is like to be curtailed the way that other members are.
To his credit, he
And
often
his-
goes against the mainstream
does.
grain. And I think
Yeah.
converts kind of have
Yeah.
that privilege in
Yeah.
a way, or at least that's usually the case with converts because they're not so steeped in the culture. So some things that seem so like inborn and innate to Mormonism, to me, he's like, that's not my religion. And I'm like, fair enough.
Do you know what's coming to my mind right now is he's like, I think of a really controlling thing. This is just one of a million things. But when the European women that were brought to Utah to become polygamous wives were brought into Salt Lake City, and they were essentially put into like this big open space, and there were like guards with guns standing all around, and they like weren't allowed to leave, and then like the bishops would come in and take their pick of the girls. That's just what's coming to mind for me. It's like, even if you think that like today the church isn't particularly controlling, like it was founded on such an insane degree of control, and then that is like lessened over time, you know, through various forces, but like, oof.
Still prescribe your underwear, still tell you what words you're not allowed to say, still tell you what you can and can't drink or eat, still tell you who you're allowed to love.
The delusion of like, yeah, but being told that I should be a gay man who's not with a gay man, like that's not controlling.
I feel like the word cult, I mean, if you break it down to mean at some point someone suggested that I live my life a certain way, then everything's a cult. And if everything's a cult, then nothing's a cult.
Oh no, because like normal people aren't usually like banned from their families' weddings
Yeah.
for like drinking tea or coffee, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, in the past, it was very much like the church would use violence to like discipline people or to keep people in line. And even
And cutting
kill
people off from your
defectors.
community on arbitrary reasons like coffee or being gay or whatever is it is a form of
And
social
fear
violence.
is a control mechanism. Like
Yes.
it's not all this like overt, someone's going to come in and punch you in the face if you don't do this thing. It's like, no, it's like decades of fear and shame and conditioning that, like, that is control. There are endless control tactics.
And it
Obviously
is-
the Mormon church is controlling.
And it is like that. I mean, the whole concept of the afterlife is God putting a gun to your head and being like, choose my way or else. And it's like, okay, well then what free choice do I actually have?
Yeah, honestly. Why is it noble if you sincerely believe that this God is capable of determining whether like all your dreams come true in the next life or whether you suffer a lot? If you sincerely believe that, of course you're going to do whatever you can to try and secure the nice outcome. Like that's just like the basic premise of like any type of religion like that is fear. Even though then they do that thing where they're like, but it needs to not come from fear. It needs to come from genuine love. And it's like, anyone when faced with like a great option or a worse option, they want the great option. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of control, I say this a lot, but you know that on Instagram, that thing that was going around that was like, post your 21-year-old self. I like had an actual like see, I went back and it was like, oh, of course, pictures of my mission, and it just like filled me with so much rage because I was so close to just like actual bodily death from being so controlled in a situation that was not good for me, that was not healthy, that wasn't like, oh, it was a hard experience that made me stronger. It was like, no, it was an unnecessarily
fucked you
difficult
up, yeah.
experience that actually hurt me and impacted me negatively, and I'm a stronger person because of the way that I've reacted to it and choose to go about living my life, and not just because of that thing that was foisted upon me that if I had been given all the information would never in a million years have chosen myself. And even being a full believer and being like, this was the best thing ever, even my last day on the mission, I was like, I would never do this again. I don't want to ever do this again.
Yeah.
This was like
Said it before,
So-
but there's a reason so many people have nightmares that they're back on their mission.
Yeah, it was like, I was thinking about it. I was like, I've said it, like, I just wanted like a bus to hit me. But I remember a point like standing on a corner and I was just like dissociating and I started like falling forward and my companion grabbed my backpack and pulled me away from a car. It was like, I was like, my body was just like, kill me.
Yeah.
And so for someone who hasn't been on a mission, who just got here, kinda.
Quaker?
Yeah.
He didn't go on a mission? Oh, yeah, he didn't go on a mission, did
No,
he?
it's like maybe
His
you
mission
don't
was
feel
the
that
super
way.
spreader events.
That's
So-
right. That's right. We all had to spread the gospel in
Yeah,
our own
we do
ways.
what we can to uplift.
But just recognize that like cool that you as an outsider were able to come in and you don't feel super controlled, but have a
Yeah.
little compassion and a little respect for this group of people who are like, hey, I was born in this and it actually feels very, very controlling to me. And now having been on the outside, I can say, yeah, here's all those ways I was coerced and manipulated into doing things that I didn't want to, that often went against my ethics, that, you know.
Yeah, if you would have asked me as a Mormon whether I felt controlled, I would have said no. Because
Right.
as a convert, you very much have the feeling that, like, well, I chose to join this thing, obviously. But, like, I was, 16, 17. I think Quaker was, like, around the same age as me when he joined. Like, you don't know all the psychological strategies that are being used on you. You don't, like, I didn't understand. Like, I can look back now and be like, I very much was controlled. I was controlled by fear. I would do things out of fear. Like, I very much, like, developed scrupulosity, like all that stuff was. But if you would have asked me at that time, I would have said no. I'm a complete free agent.
Shame is just the water that Mormons are swimming in and that their gills are breathing and they don't even recognize it as such.
And most people that join a religion like Mormonism, speaking for myself, like do come from a background of intense shame too. I mean, I think most humans do. Unfortunately.
But when I think about the amount of shame that I, as like an adolescent, endured for just the coming into puberty and my sexual maturation, the amount of angst and self-hatred and loathing I developed around every part of that because of the Mormon Church still like breaks my heart when I like think about it too much. And I feel like so much of my life has since been like trying to like help that like inner child and inner adolescent recover from that and just be like, hey buddy, you're like deeply loved and just like okay.
Then everything's a cult. And if everything's a cult, then nothing's a cult.
Can't argue with that
If we
logic.
apply definitions to whatever we want, the words can we mean whatever, and so whatever you're saying literally means nothing to me, so therefore I do not have to respond to it. Hope that helped.
There are many members of the church who have this mindset that when the prophet speaks, the debate is over and you should just not think about it. And that's not right.
Just so we can be on the same page here, like that sentiment was very much taught by endless prophets and apostles.
Still gets taught to this
People
day.
were excommunicated for not following that.
The very first simple recommendation question is like, do you support these dudes? These men?
It has shifted in recent years because of pressure from like ex-Mormons, but it's like the fabric of Mormonism is very much when the prophet speaks, the thinking has been done. Like, let's not act like that's just like some cultural idea that popped up. Like, that was very much taught by like every Mormon prophet and apostle for like generation. I mean, again, it's not being taught now. I just think they're a bit more careful now.
But like Cult 101, charismatic leader, that you're not allowed to criticize or whatever. Here we go.
But that is not what the church has taught over time.
It literally is.
Still to
Do I
this
even
day.
have to like get on my phone and pull up a quote, or can we just have this like mutually agreed upon? Like, yes, it is.
I think, though, that you are told, seek your own answer, pray, but if it differs from what the prophet is saying, then you might be being deceived by Satan, or you got the wrong answer.
Not you might be. You are being deceived by Satan. It is not okay to come to a conclusion that the prophet has not said.
It should ultimately align with what the prophet is saying. And that's why they say, read the Book of Mormon, pray, see if it's true for yourself. And if you don't get an answer, pray harder, go talk to someone, have more experiences, try again, until you get the right answer that it's true. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say that you can seek truth on your own that doesn't align with the prophet, because that doesn't generally just seem to be how it goes.
Yeah, but that completely goes in the face of, I was a missionary for 2 years, and the number one message we do when we present the Book of Mormon and Mormonism at large to somebody is the infamous Moroni's promise. We say, go home, pray about it. You need to develop a relationship with God that is so unique and strong that you can recognize when he is talking.
As she just said, but then what happens if you go back to missionaries and say, I think there's no point where a missionary would be like, oh, well, I guess God just doesn't want you to believe in this thing or join it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is no acceptable.
Why did
We
he
all know
started
this.
talking and I immediately felt like I was in a Vivint sales pitch meeting?
I was immediately like, where is my bulletproof vest?
To you whether or not this is the path you're supposed to take. The idea that Mormonism is a cult is a pejorative trope that has been an anti-Mormon slur against the church for a long time. And I always ask, by what rubric?
By the definition of hypochondriacs.
Let's whip out the
rubric-
bite model, shall
I
we?
know. There are several rubrics we could use.
Again, yeah, charismatic leader, thought control, control of sexuality, and moderation of relationships.
Did you also notice how he like moved away from it? Because again, her point was that like if you pray and you don't get that answer, you'll be told, well, you haven't got the right answer yet. And then he just like starts waffling about the infamous Moroni's, but he doesn't like say anything substantial that like refutes what she actually said. He just kind of is like stepping into like the male Mormon, like I'm saying a smart thing right now using words like pejorative. On the screen, Jubilee has put, Stephen Hassan developed the BITE model to describe cult-specific methods to recruit and maintain control over people. BITE stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. I appreciate Jubilee's efforts to add that.
You mentioned the BITE model before, and I've seen that you've interviewed Stephen Hassan on your show.
Me too, I was there.
And he's given a rubric. Well, that same author has called anybody that voted for Donald Trump a cult. He wrote an entire
He didn't say anyone who voted for Donald Trump is a cult. But he did talk, I mean, yeah, Trump is an authoritarian leader. He did talk about like the cult, like the cult of Trump, I think the book is called. But
who like fully leans into
who
his like,
openly says,
I am the divine chosen one.
Who can save you. Yeah, I will on day one kick out. He's literally like, I will take away a student visa from anyone who's like in support of Palestine. Like that is like the definition of being a controlling authoritarian. I gotta calm this energy now because we have so much left to go.
book about the cult of Trump. And if you apply any of these BITE model methodologies or any of these cult definitions, my show choir in high school was a cult. Apple is a cult.
That's probably true. Show choirs can be very culty. I don't think he's wrong. He's probably right about that.
I love it when people are like, well, it's kind of like when men are like, okay, my problem with the way that you're describing abuse is you're making it sound like what I'm doing is abuse. And if
Everything I've ever
you're
done or
making it sound like all
experienced
my
is that.
friends are abusers, and we couldn't be that because we're good guys.
Every time I hear about an American who was in band, I'm like, what is band out here? Like it really, I think that's really funny.
Your show choir group dictated what underwear you were allowed to wear.
Crazy,
it
man.
told you that you weren't allowed to love or accept gay people.
In the past, it killed people for going against the show choir director. Damn.
Wait until the next Star Wars movie comes out. It's a cult.
What are you talking about? Apple is a cult. This is just like a total
Yeah, we've
dissolution
spun out.
of meaning.
We've
It's just
spun
like,
out.
I'm just gonna like, oh, this is so dumb.
Saying that people can have a cult-like allegiance to a brand, for example, is not the same as saying like, this is an organization that is structured in like a cult-like authoritarian way, literally appearing like, do I think that there are people who, you know, are on Apple's side in a way that is cult-like? Sure, but like Apple is not a cult.
Who's gonna suicide bomb a village on behalf of Apple? Like, it's not Apple that gets people to do shit. It's religion. Like, it's the religious people who like project their experience on others. Like, well, atheism isn't a religion. It's just like, and it's like, because you only exist in this bubble where you're just like in this fish tank breathing this water, and you assume that everything is just water. You don't even know what the water is, and you just assume that like, ooh, because I'm religious, that everyone views the world the exact same way I do. Like,
That word is used in the same way, with the same inefficacy and the inability to back it up, unless you use people that, unfortunately, in your case, were not actually.
Our founder merely created several fraudulent pseudopographic documents pretending to be ancient histories that he used to dupe people, and in the process groom their children for marriage. And it really bugs me that you would consider that culty. Just because what? Every cult leader did the exact same thing?
Since when is marrying children at the start of an
Qualifying.
organization? Yeah, since when?
Unfortunately, in your case, were not actually being truly Mormon.
Stephen Hassan would agree.
What's he
Weren't being
referring to? Like-
meaning being truly Mormon, as in they weren't being truly faithful. They were acknowledging
But
the
who's he
pain that was
talking
happening.
about? Is he talking about
critics?
them?
I suppose people using.
But he said like
I guess,
in your
probably.
case, is it, or is he saying like the people that like were taught you like controlling ideas. It always comes back to the thing of like the no true Scotsman fallacy, right?
Yeah.
Stephen Hassan would agree that Apple can have some of the traits of a cult or the military or an educational institution or a corporation, but he also has a harm continuum, a continuum of harm. And if you add up all the deaths of the People's Temple, Jim Jones, of any of the cults you mentioned, it won't add up to the number of LGBT youth in the Mormon church that have killed themselves. Talk about just severity of, children are cut off, some children are homeless because their parents kick them out. Now, I'll admit, the Mormon church does a lot of good for a lot of people. But if you just add up the amount of harm, I think that's when it goes from just a silly trope to a very serious conversation.
I can't vouch and say that an organization as large as the LDS Church doesn't have any damage. Obviously, people can do damage, but at the same token, if we hold every organization to a standard that implies they can't have any sort of cultural stains that the entire country has struggled with, well, good luck. And as someone who believes in Jesus Christ, my hope and my goal is we can get rid of it. We can get rid of that out of our church.
I love how they've gone from being like, the church is the one true, most correct organization on the face of the earth, led directly by direct revelation from God to his chosen mouthpiece, who has his second comforter, calling an election made sure, heaven's open, revelation, and then like to instantly pivot to like, what, you expect us to be any better than any other organization in the world? You think we should be better
Apple
than...
this stand, like...
Yeah, like, what, you think we should have to, like, report sexual abuse of children?
It's like, we don't like Apple either, okay? We could definitely get on Apple's case, too.
It's not just that the church is just as bad as the Catholics. It's like, in some cases, it's actually worse. Like, the LDS Church Utah has a higher than average rate of children's suicide, and it's not because of the elevation.
Being half as bad as the Catholics would still be like that's not a reason to not have this discussion or to just like act like everything's fine.
And I don't want to say that the LDS Church is worse as far as abuse goes.
No, we're not making any statements.
The Catholic Church, they have fought hard for that reputation.
Church eventually. But that is not a unique Mormon problem. That is a problem that was given to us by...
Again, not all things that are good, nothing in Mormonism that is good is unique to Mormonism, and not all things that are unique to Mormonism are good. Mm-hmm. And Mormonism shares most of the bad with people, and a lot of the unique things about Mormonism are uniquely bad, and none of the good things about it are exclusive to Mormonism. Because again, you can get community anywhere, you can get sobriety anywhere, you can get whatever it is. It doesn't have to be through this like quirky polygamous sect from Utah.
It is interesting though that now Mormonism has been backed into this corner where its members have to be like, lots of organizations are really bad. Instead of, like you said, like their doctrine is like, we are the one true church on the face of the earth today. And it's like, well, you're led by God, so yeah, you should.
The generations that came before, the generations that said separate water fountains, the generations that said, oh, you're gay, you should be going to camp, whether it's a Baptist, Mormons, whatever. That stuff is evil. But does that evil make us uniquely evil, or is that a Western American problem?
I don't think anyone's trying to claim that Mormonism is uniquely evil. Like, this feels like a bit of a straw man, because he's like, or is that a Western American problem? It's like, yeah, it is, but it's also like, but we're talking about Mormonism in this video, so it's like...
And again, in light of the claims of Mormonism to be the one true church on the face of the earth in direct cahoots with Christ Almighty, Jesus, Lord and Savior, it's like, yeah, like we should expect that, actually.
That superiority is what allows you to justify child brides. So you better like fucking stand by it.
What you ought to be saying is like, isn't it true that in every single, well, I don't know about every single, maybe there's some really cool progressive religions out there, but like the vast majority of religions, and the more high control we get on the spectrum, the more this manifests, that it is a tendency amongst almost all religions to have this like ethnocentric view of themselves, that we are better just by fact of being closer to God and having better teachings and better rules and living higher standards than the other people around us.
Basic
and
tribalism.
That is also, as an outsider, being like, that is a shadow side that you should be seeing in yourself and in these other communities, and realizing that itself is something that needs to be transcended for religion or people coming out of religion to take their healthiest forms.
Yeah, what is the point of religion and spirituality if it doesn't help you confront all that?
I would be so down with religion if it was like something that you just graduated from, like rather than this thing that like sinks its claws in you and like gets you for life.
This should be interesting. The Mormon community welcomes the LGBTQ+ community Only 6% of middle ground community voters said that it does. 94% of people said it does not. I think we would both say, no, it does not.
Community welcomes the LGBTQ community.
Depends. Are you an influencer for the church? Sorry, we won't go there.
So as a gay member of the church, I truly believe that I feel welcome. I feel at home.
Okay, you've talked about leaving that lifestyle. So even though we can say like, yeah, you're gay because you're attracted to men, you aren't living a gay lifestyle. And should you be gay, functionally gay, not just in mind only or however you experience that, then you would not be welcome in church for the most part.
It's so harmful the way that Mormons have been convinced that like being loving and accepting of the LGBTQ plus community just means like allowing gay people to just like be there as long as they keep all of your rules and like completely repress that entire part of them. It's like reality has been recast to them. So they're like, yeah, we're super loving. And it's like, you might be really friendly to the gay guy that's in your ward on Sunday who's married to a woman and has kids. But like, that's a completely different thing.
We're very handicap accessible as long as they can get up the stairs. Like very,
Even just teaching that gayness is a sin is homophobic.
I realize some people have an issue with, obviously we have the doctrine that sexual expression should only be between a married man and woman, but that same standard applies to everyone. And the scriptures are clear.
Ooh, that's such a sad, like that. It's the same for everyone, but it's not, because like straight people get to eventually express their natural sexual inclinations and gay people don't. Again, it's just like this recasting of reality just by these like...
The scriptures are the Bronze Age mythology is very clear. It ought not happen. It's just unnatural. Donkeys talking, people riding flaming chariots into the sky, that's natural. Two gay guys loving each other, no, please. Again, the mythology is very, very clear. It says in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
And the scriptures are clear that male and female, black and white, bond and free, all are welcome to come into Christ, and that's the purpose of the church.
The church agrees that no matter like what you are, and who you love, they're not gonna shun you because of that.
You just can't attend all the meetings with your eternal family.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to allow to fully participate and have to experience communal shame in front of your whole community. But yeah, you're not gonna get like shunned.
Also, it kind of frustrates me because there'll be like these minor, not even like across the board changes that make it, you know, like some gay Mormons are now like able to take the sacrament who are married or whatever. And then suddenly that's instantly like, yep, that's the way. And it's like, what about like the entire existence of the church that has not been like that? And the people's like very real pain for all of that. Like sometimes it's very frustrating to hear like younger Mormons just act like this is how it is. And it's like, but the history of your church matters because it was supposed to be led by a prophet of God the whole time.
Right.
Like, that's the whole point,
and
right?
all these shifts toward like, oh yeah, it was taught that, but not anymore. And it's like the only reason it's not as emphasized as much, it's not because of a prophet-led initiative to be like, actually, we should democratize this experience a little bit. It's literally been by progressive people pushing the status quo, often getting excommunicated and cut off from their community, and oftentimes economic opportunities if they're, you know, living in the Mormon corridor. It's people pushing that envelope against prophetic directives.
You might not get the same privileges necessarily, but that doesn't, in the church.
It's like the definition of homophobia. Like, gay people might not get the same privilege. Black people may not get the same privileges. Like, that's racism. That's homophobia.
It might be a little separate, but it is equal.
Wait, what do you mean? What privileges? Like,
such as
elaborate.
like going to the temple, that kind of a privilege. So
yeah, but that also is the same for straight people. If you're not living the law of chastity and you're straight, you could have your temple recommended as well.
It's very personal, but the church doesn't specifically, when you're invited to church, they don't come up to you and ask you, are you straight? They're very welcome.
Yes,
are you straight? Are you lesbian? Are you gay? They ask you about
You
yourself.
don't have to fill out a form?
No.
Oh, see, when I walked in,
know.
I had to fill out a form. No, I'm kidding.
Can the disagreeers please step forward, please?
The concept that straight people and gay people have it equally hard to enter the temple is a complete joke, because straight people, yes, also have to deal with their trials and their faith and live the law of chastity, do X, Y, and Z. and yet they're not having to go against their instincts or their nature. It's all lined up for them.
I mean, I would argue that straight people still really have to go against their instincts a lot in Mormonism, but that's kind of a separate issue, and I love what you're saying, Liz.
If we were to flip it and say that being gay is the norm in the church, let's just pretend for a second, and you were the straight one, and you wanted to go to the temple, and in order to go to the temple, you would have to swear to never sleep with women again, and you would only be able to sleep with men. That would feel very wrong to you. Yeah?
No, I completely understand. We live in a hypersexualized society, and I think...
Don't think that's the problem. Don't think...
Just hypersexual animals, man. We're primates, dude. We were born for this.
It's literally how we survive in the animal kingdom, which we're all part of.
I think that is very, very difficult for gay, lesbian, transgender members of the church, and so on and so forth. And just as Timber said, the Lord in his infinite mercy does not spare any of us from trials. But
so nice of him to allow the homophobia. So nice of him to allow that trial of not being able to love.
That line just sounded like it was written for like a comedy, like Righteous Gemstones or something, like explaining just why someone did like a horrible thing. It's like, God in his mercy does not spare us abuse. Like, he loves us so much that he just like hurts us constantly.
It's giving Helen Mar Kimball trying to rationalize having to be married to Joseph Smith at 14 years old.
Literally.
this idea that, I don't want to say that their trial is unique, because it is unique, but I look at it a little bit differently. I have leukemia. My illness will kill me 20 years earlier than Timber. You don't think...
He's like, the homophobia of the church is fine because I have to go through a hard thing too that's completely separate, and that no one is like persecuting people for having leukemia or like shaming.
It's like, okay, what if it was like, if you act on your leukemia, you don't get to see your family ever. Like, you don't get to attend your siblings' weddings. You don't get to go to the happy little afterlife. Like, that's what it's like. It's like the ban against left-handed people.
You don't think on my deathbed, forgive me.
I'm finding this a bit hard to watch because whether or not this is a genuine display of emotion, I feel like he's taking the plight of gay Mormons who are like very much persecuted and suffering, and then making it about his thing and like using his leukemia, which is sad but a separate issue, as a way to be like, again, it's okay that gay people have the trial of being gay and the church limiting them in what they can do and who they can love because I have to go through hard things too. Like, I find that really icky.
Very classic male Mormon manipulator shit. Like, it's like, this is the exact kind of attitude that white Mormon men like him had against black people. Is like, we're all born with certain kind of limitations and with struggles and trials, and you were just given this one, and I'm sorry, because of divine mandate and just the natural order of things, you're just not allowed to fully participate. I don't make the rules.
And it's also like, it's reinforcing that like being gay is like unto a disease, which your church has, you know, openly peddled for ages. Oof, where is this fucking going?
You don't think that I wouldn't trade a little bit of Timber's gayness for 20 years extra?
Oh, God.
That's not even on the table.
That's such an insane hypothetical. And also deeply fucked up to say that like your thing seems actually easier, never being able to love anyone your whole life that you're actually attracted to.
God,
I think most people would argue that they'd rather live 10 years less long and be able to love who they love. Like, most people would rather live a life with love. Like, true, genuine, fulfilling, all-round love. It's crazy that he said this on Jubilee. The audience is so much bigger than they're used to.
It's like, I feel like having leukemia, that fucking sucks. So sorry. And I'm so sorry that you have been manipulated into, giving the sacrifices you want. If you feel like those were, fully offered of your own free will and accord, sure, that's great. But don't go around using that as a manipulation to diminish other people's pain, to be like, your pain is totally invalid and you're not allowed to want something different for yourself, or you shouldn't dare to want to be treated as an equal because I have to suffer. I, a white male, have to suffer too.
It's obviously completely insane, but I'm kind of glad he's saying it because it is revealing like the types of justifications that have to happen within the Mormon church due to the homophobia. Yeah. Like, this is very revealing that this is a question about gay people, and we've instantly gone to this white straight man struggles in life, and how that, for some reason, makes it okay that gay people are suffering.
Right.
We gotta move on.
20 years extra on this earth. So if Timber has a loss of faith because being gay in a hypersexualized world with a law of chastity from the Bible that he doesn't understand, I get that.
That he doesn't understand. This man has foregone his gayness and married a woman and had kids with her. And he's like, but he doesn't understand. I guess it's all just kind of an abstract hypothetical to him, but I'm like, what is happening? Also, kudos to the ex-Mormons for keeping it together while this is going on, because I'd be losing I couldn't, this is insane.
Because we live in a cruel, hypersexualized world.
Hypersexuality, however hypersexualized our world is, that's not what's giving people the desire to love who they're attracted to love who they naturally love, to have sex with who they naturally want to have sex with. Like, we could have no television, no screens, and like people still have sex. Like,
Yes.
we are sexual beings.
Yes. Honestly, having 36 wives, many of whom were
Pretty
underage,
hypersexual.
seems more hypersexual to me, but who am I?
Yeah.
I was literally laying in the arms of a lover and just thinking, like, how basic it is to just our animal existence, to just want physical proximity of another being, and how fucking inhumane and cruel it is to try to regulate that for anybody, to be like, you are not allowed to take comfort in the people that God has created you to take comfort in. Like, just so devoid of any sense or like genuine love. This is all like, all I'm getting from him is like fear and pain and this like, well, I'm in pain and I'm afraid and so I have to push it on other people and I can't listen to anybody else because I have to be in charge and I have to be the man and I have to be right about everything or else.
It's so scary how well you can get into that, because that is exactly how I imagine like his internal landscape being.
But I stare down the barrel of a chemotherapy pill every day that keeps me alive. I will die probably the same time my father does.
But the Mormons aren't like giving you leukemia, and they're not like, hey, if you have leukemia, you're not allowed to. This is.
And it would be fucked up if you like had to endure leukemia when you didn't have to, because like, I don't know, God said we have to inject you with leukemia and you have to. Yeah, this is unbelievable.
White man struggling? Sorry, your struggle is invalid.
We are now we have gone from LGBTQ people suffering to a white man's tears. And again, we would
because people
there
have
is space to be empathetic for your leukemia. It's not that you don't deserve love and sympathy for that, because you do, but like, my God.
Yeah, this is so off the map.
It's a trial and it sucks, but welcome to the club. That's why.
I have to stop you right there. To say that being gay is a trial is disgusting. That is offensive.
You don't
That is
think
like
dying
saying-
early is disgusting
No.
to me?
Let her finish.
I am saying that the way that the church sees people being born gay is like being born with cancer.
I think she was more upset that you basically
To
codified it
refer
as an illness.
as
No,
a
I'm saying if you
trial.
have a loss of
No.
faith because of it.
Being gay is not a trial. Being gay in the church is a trial because of how they treat you and how they see it. How they see gay people is like being born with cancer. They're like, we're so sorry you were born this way. You can be that way, but don't do anything about it. I went to BYU. I took tests where they said, they had asked questions like, how do we treat members of the LGBTQ community? And the answer was to love them unconditionally, but understand that they will never be truly as happy as those who follow the Mormon religion. And so that is so painful to read and see, because the trial isn't being gay. Actually, being gay is incredible. Being attracted to someone of the same sex is beautiful, and I've never been happier. The trial comes when the church tells you that that is wrong, and hopefully when you die, that cancer of being gay will be gone. That's the trial.
I disagree. I think we all have equal opportunity for happiness. I think happiness looks different for other people, and
It's actually pretty consistent.
Well, no, I think people have different baselines of like contentment.
No, it's true, and things that they're looking for.
Because I feel like when we talk about happiness, we're really talking about peace, contentment, fulfillment. You know what I mean? Like happiness is sort of an umbrella.
Sure.
And I do think there are a lot of deeply unhappy Mormons, and I also think there are a lot of Mormons who are living way below their happiness privileges, but don't know it because that's the waters they've been swimming in.
I can say that I had a semblance of happiness when I was with my boyfriends.
I like to imagine that it was like he had 6 boyfriends at once, and they were all just in like a like a
polycule.
group. Yeah, polycule.
We're actually called the
together.
polycool.
But are you saying she's not really happy? Are you saying her happiness is fake?
I'm not. I believe you are truly happy. And
Do you think
I
she'll need to change fundamentally who she is as a person when we're talking about the next life in order to get that happiness that you're looking that you're bringing to the
I
table?
believe the Christian doctrine that sexual expression should only be between a man and a woman. But that, again,
Well, you're gonna hate the founder of this goddamn church.
that's not an LDS doctrine.
So will Mormon Heavenly Father keep her out of the celestial kingdom? if she continues to have gay relationships.
He's not.
Wait, I asked him.
I am saying that
That's a yes or no. That's a yes or no.
Do I believe that Heavenly Father would keep her out of the celestial kingdom if she
If she
decided
continues to have lesbian relationships through her entire life and doesn't repent for them,
yes, I believe that. Yes, but
he'll keep her out of heaven. Celestial kingdom. Celestial kingdom.
No.
Celestial kingdom.
Yes, we all have a standard that we need.
She won't be able to live with her family forever, which is the
Or with
Mormon
a spouse.
promise.
No, but that's
because
an abuse
Hold on,
of the
hold on,
doctrine
hold
of
on.
eternal
Hold on. Keep going.
I mean, I believe Jesus is clear in the scriptures that there is a certain way to be able to return to the Father, and we have to be willing to sacrifice everything. He says that we need to lay down our lives, deny ourselves.
And that's how you have the happiest existence, question mark?
That God is such a psychopath. Like, again, Kevin Test, imagine this God as a real person, like an actual person. He's like, hey, I'm gonna create you a certain way, I'm gonna make you forget everything, and then if you don't choose me based on zero evidence, I'm gonna fucking torture you forever. Like, cut you off from your family forever. That is torture, like, for a lot of people. It's...
Once again, coming to that, back to that, like, if you're a fish in water, you like don't know what water is because you've never experienced anything else. There's just like so many ingrained conceptual realities in Mormonism like that they can't even see it. That they're not even able to see how it's like fundamentally fucked up to say that like you won't be with your family forever unless you follow this guy. Like that isn't even like registering as like part of the problem to them.
To follow him in order to go to heaven. And whether you believe it's the celestial kingdom or heaven or whatever it is, there is a standard that we need to live by.
That standard, it also applies to several other religions. I just don't want that to get confused, that it's specifically our Mormon
Well, that's
religion.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's
just funded Prop 8 the most. Again, we're just like baseline bad as all other Christian denominations. What, you expect the One True Church to be a little bit more loving? No.
This panel
believe
is
it
about
doesn't
the
mean
LDS
right.
Church, though. We definitely can talk about the issues with the LDS Church.
There's two ways to be accepted in the Mormon Church if you're gay. You either can be celibate or you can enter into a mixed orientation marriage. And I can tell you that there's like a 70% divorce rate for mixed orientation marriages.
That's
Let me
not
just finish. It is true.
That is not true.
So I have a PhD in clinical and counseling psychology. I interviewed 1,612 LGBT Mormons and ex-Mormons, and this is based on my
It says on the screen, the divorce rate for mixed orientation marriages was 51% at the time of survey completion, with projections suggesting an eventual divorce rate of 69%. Journal of Gay and Lesbian Mental Health. So John's pretty spot on with the 70%.
published research data. Let me just finish. So you have one choice, which is to be in a mixed orientation marriage where 70% are going to fail and you're going to be likely miserable.
They got Zelf on the Shelf sound right now. It's like so lovely. This would never fly on Mormon Stories, this audio quality.
Or you can be celibate, and believe it or not, being celibate has worse depression, anxiety, and mental health outcomes as someone who's in a mixed orientation marriage. And that's why so many LGBTQ Mormons choose death.
And if you want personal, I'll give you personal. I am married to a man who used to be married to a woman, an amazing, amazing woman who God definitely had me find because of the situation that I had. I was able to have 2 biological children with this woman, and there is no way I believe in a God that is going to take away my husband and my 2 biological children that he absolutely gave me. I have them, I love them, and I will have them forever.
I think statistics are very important, but I'm very curious. Would you say you're happier now than before?
Yes, because my joy, the joy that I feel in Christ is so much deeper than the emotional, physical connection that I had with my boyfriends. It doesn't compare.
He's like, the polycule had a lot of issues.
You gotta bring Jesus into the polycule, okay? He's top dog. Yeah, it's like, that guy too is like, well, I'm a Christian and gay, and like, what, I'm not like my Jesus. That's the thing, is like, everyone's belief in religion and the knowledge and the relationship with Jesus is just as real as everybody else's. It's all the same psychological mechanisms playing out. And yet nobody can be like, oh, maybe this is just how the brain works. It's like, no, the feeling I have is real, and the exact same feeling that you have is either
And
Satan
you're lying
or...
about your feelings, or you're confused.
Yeah.
Also, imagine if you only spent a few years dating, and that was like the summation of your experiences dating. If I just took like my first few years of dating people as the thing I'm contrasting my happiness to for the rest of my life, I'm like, that's a shit show. It takes that's the point of dating. Like, it takes a while to build up like the emotional, relational skills, communication skills to like have a fulfilling, deeply happy relationship. So to compare like a few years when you just come out of Christian shame and, you know.
It's not even fully deconstructed.
Yeah, it's like, it's not as simple as that. Mental wellness, happiness is like so contingent on like, like mental health, and I think like uprooting delusions and shame. And it's like, if that work hasn't been done, it's not like, you can't deduce like whether or not homophobia is okay by being like, I was miserable in my polycule and I'm and now I'm happy with my wife.
It's like, yeah, most of us are happier with our partners now than we were with the ones before. That's why we're with them now, regardless of the gender. My initial dating, straight in the church Christian dating experiences were so awkward, and I don't mean to, like, they were fine. But, like, I was so detached from who I was as an individual and so naive about everything that my experiences were so weird that my parents wondered if I was gay. So riddle me that.
It doesn't
so
compare.
much joy in Christ right now.
Can I just interject?
Let's just, and we can. So that might be the only Mormon who didn't step forward.
He's so good. I love that guy. What is his name?
Yeah, I think it's Guy. Something with a G.
He's the Carden Tamer. What's his name?
And I love how they like have to listen to him because he's a big TV producer.
Just like, hey, please.
You know, I think two things can be true at once. So, obviously, members of the church, by and large, are good people who don't hate anyone. But at the same time, we got to...
Except Carden. He fucking hates everyone. Also, are we coming into a moment of Kwaku becoming the most rational Mormon we've heard from so far?
I have seen a couple takes from Kwaku on Twitter recently that I almost liked. I think one I did like and then I unliked. I was like, I don't even want to go
like,
near...
Two things can be true at once. I'm like, I'm listening, King.
Be realistic. Gay people aren't going anywhere and Mormons aren't going anywhere. So what do you do? And the future of LGBT relations in the church, I'm excited to see what happens. Because clearly something's going to have to happen. Something's going to have to change because these are two groups that are not leaving.
It is cool that he, as an outsider, can recognize the need and the opportunity for change in the way that some older school, born and raised, true blue, they might feel more of that conservative, traditional, like, no, we just have to stick with that. Whereas, again, the convert can be like, well, that's not like homophobia doesn't have to be like an essential part of the doctrine.
Yeah, but I think that's like a personal journey Kwaku's gone on because he hasn't always been like that. Like, it's not necessary. Like, I think you can have people born in the church that are like that. Like, it kind of doesn't really matter whether you... I know what you mean. Like, being a convert can definitely lend itself to more open-mindedness. But I to like kind of give him credit, I feel like he has potentially come a long way from his like hard line.
And who knows?
We'll see. I don't know.
Who knows
much
what
about
his
him.
idea of like change and compromise could be? Because again, this isn't like an even two-way street of like, well, gays are oppressing Mormons and Mormons are oppressing gay people. It's like, no, Mormons literally have fought to legally disempower and disenfranchise gay people nationally, outside of people who show up on Sunday and who are shamed out of their own being and shamed out of love and all of that shit, and who are driven to suicide by these fear-based shame manipulator cultures. It's not this like two-way street, right? Like,
Yeah.
so he might be like, oh yeah, maybe they'll be allowed to like show up and they can have like civil ceremonies, and it's like the church needs to just step the fuck off of everybody's neck. Like, get the fuck out of politics. Like, the gender stuff that's been passing in Utah, like, that's not gay people just showing up and feeling uncomfortable at church and being like, well, I have leukemia, so that's what you have to do. That's like, no, that's you guys going out of your way to make life harder for people who aren't members of your in-group, because some ancient Bronze Age mythology gives you somebody told you that that's what the Bronze Age mythology wants you to do, even though, of course, the initial things are so far from that. But I'm ranting now at this point. Let's dive back in.
Women and men are equal in the church. Agreeers, please step forward.
I feel like this whole thing is going to be a microcosm of the problems with gender in the church. It's going to be like all men being like, the church is very, very feminine. And then be like, don't speak, a man is speaking.
This is one of the most glorious doctrines of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that there's no other church or religion on the earth that teaches that men and women eventually can become gods, co-creators, and co-equal partners.
That is such an ignorant statement. Mormons are so ignorant. Sorry, I'm not going to be so general.
Yeah.
Use sweeping generalizations. A lot of Mormons are conditioned to be so ethnocentric about their own things that they're like totally pretty uninformed about like
a
world
lot of religions
religions and
believe stuff
philosophy.
like that,
like Hinduism the basic premise of Hinduism is that we are all divine, that like our Atman is the manifestation of the eternal being, and that we are co-creators with it. Like, you're not the only one. You don't even know your Heavenly Mother's name. You're not even allowed to talk about her in church.
I mean, we do believe currently that we are co-equal partners already, just different responsibilities.
Yeah, it's just like one is the CEO and one is the receptionist. They're completely equal.
One's the janitor.
It's like those companies that are like, everyone at the company is equal in worth. And it's like, okay, well, one of you earns $6 million a year and the other one doesn't.
But we both have the same ability to become kings and queens, priests and priestesses. And that's the ultimate goal.
Why do American Mormons aspire to the monarchy so much? Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be a king or a queen.
I know, it sounds
Also,
so horrible.
Part of being a king and a queen is like having power over others, presumably your children. I'm not interested in that.
Right, exactly. It's like all these psychopathic systems. Like, why are we so eager to replicate them in heaven?
You think that's like beautiful that we one day, but I'm like, why is kings and queens the most holy thing you can think of? The best imaginable? Absolutely the fuck not.
The celestial paparazzi alone will drive you into insanity after 1,000 years, okay? You don't want it. You don't want to be a king. Read Prince Harry's book.
I wholeheartedly believe that men and women in the church are equal, but I think it's important to define what equal is, because I'm immediately aware of what the secular anti-Mormon arguments are. At the same
The secular anti-Mormon arguments are that equal means equal, but we know the higher law, that equal is separate but equal.
Is that men tell women how to be equal.
Different privileges but equal. Men tell, yeah.
I look at our faith, and we're a faith that has codified this idea, as the Apostle Paul said, that we will be co-participants in his glory.
The Apostle Paul, who said that women should cover their faces and not speak.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one, notoriously, famously.
Sorry, but I can't with these these two men who are going to tell us that men and women are equal in the church, when it's like, okay, what 14-year-old boys were forced to marry middle-aged women against their will? When did that happen?
And we have a Relief Society, which is the largest women's organization in the world.
Don't you know that the Relief Society is the largest and most long-lasting organization
and the most boring
created for women and run by men? Men decide who get to be at the ceremonial token heads of it, but they make the decision.
One of the only faiths that's mainstream or large enough to have national recognition that I know of that has a doctrine of Heavenly Mother that is actually sung about in our official...
Again, not the only one. You just haven't bothered to learn about anybody else.
Hymn book. You look at women, they don't need to receive the priesthood in order to go to the temple.
We have one song about mother compared to the 300 other ones we have about the patriarchal deity. What do you mean they're not equal? They don't even have to have power and authority and rights to be able to attend the temple. Isn't that wonderful?
Unlike black people, who we just simply banned across the board from the temple for the majority of the church's history.
We're told our priesthood as men that we hold is useless unless it's applied through long suffering and patience. And we're constantly told that you are living the Adam and Eve archetype. And unless you make a decision mutually with your wife, which is the ultimate definition of equality.
What was the Adam and Eve situation again? Is like you marry each other, then your kids, they mate together, they populate the world. What is this?
Also positioning it as like you make a decision with your wife. It's like that is historically not what has been taught. Like you, until recently, covenanted to obey your husband as he obeys God. Like that's just not, again, majority of the church's history. Whatever is going on right now, whatever, like, if anything, it's more cultural. It's more of a cultural belief that men and women, like the less sexist stuff is the cultural stuff. People will be like, oh, the doctrine's perfect, the culture's not. It's like, it's usually the culture that is like way ahead.
Yeah.
It's what we call unrighteous dominion. I'm very aware that some people say, oh, because women can't have the priesthood, that you're a second-class citizen. And there's some cultural arguments that people might try and bring in, but in the codified faith, women enjoy, sometimes will complain about almost preferential treatment.
Benevolent sexism, yes.
Do men have to, of all ages, have to report to a matriarch in their local congregation and tell them all their sins? Does the woman get to be the mediator between couples' relationships that come for a struggle? Does the woman get to be a spiritual counselor? Does the woman have final say in the like punitive
the
judicial
council of love?
Yeah, in disciplinary councils, do women have the say in who gets punished and how they get punished? Because I guarantee you it would be very different if they did, and they likely wouldn't have the like retching child sex abuse cover-up scandal problems that they've been having for the last few years if they were. I think.
Yeah.
This is like men problem all the way down.
100%, and really good use of guarantee.
Thank you.
But it's so true. If women were presiding over this. I mean, women can uphold a harmful system too, don't get me wrong.
Sure,
but I
sure.
struggle to believe that they would minimize the rampant sex abuse of children the way that the men have.
Because it's mostly men doing it. And men looking out for each other, like exactly how they were taught to do in the temple, in the old boys club, in the patriarchal order.
Does anyone know who the Relief Society president is? Like, can you name the woman that is the Relief Society president over the whole church?
I know it was.
That's fucking good. I wouldn't even have thought to go there. That's
Liz.
genius.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Genius.
That silence there.
Damn. That was so good.
It's Gene B. Bingham. I don't know who it is right now. I'll be honest with you.
Once again, Quaker coming out as the best of the bunch. We could not have predicted it, but we love to see it.
And the best was, I don't know, but I should.
The best was like at one point, yeah. But you know.
Definitely think that men and women are treated very
With
differently.
that said, I can't name the 12 apostles. I can't name the 12 apostles.
Women are treated differently. It's like.
And then, yeah, she's having to have a man step in for him to listen to her.
So
And yet you could name probably the first three, President Nelson and his counselors.
I could name the prophet, yes, but at any given time, I confess.
Let's stay on track. Let's stay on track. Stay on track.
I do not think men and women are treated equally, and it goes beyond the priesthood. It also goes to your duties as a woman. I think a lot of the time women are told, a lot of women go to BYU or college just to find a spouse, and they're told not to continue their education once they get married and to let the man take over and be the main breadwinner. So I think that there is a difference between the duties of men and women in church.
I think that's just a general critique of Judeo-Christian traditional household standards, I guess, or customs.
Yeah, sure. When Mormons will be like, yeah, but that's Christian too, and it's like, yep, just as problematic there.
Doesn't
Not
make the
okay with
problem
it
go
there
away.
either.
It's like you.
They
What
really
you're
use
saying is the problem is
Christianity.
bigger than us, and it's like yes, and that doesn't absolve you of the
Yeah.
responsibility to fix the problem as it manifests in your ranks.
It's like, stop using Christianity as your shield.
The thing
Like,
that you famously left behind that you were like, not for me anymore, I'm doing this one. And you're like, well, it's a big common problem to Christianity. The fact is that women are not given an avenue for exploring personhood outside of the home in the same way that men are encouraged
a woman's
to
primary
do so.
duty is in the home, yeah. This is a church that was founded on marrying children, coercing women and children into marriage. I feel like that alone, you can't just like sweep that under the rug as like some side thing that used to happen. It's like, this is like how this church grew, is by coercing women and children into marriage. And again, any like rights and privileges that women have now, they did not have them back then. It's like typically been taught that women, as Liz said, like shouldn't pursue employment. Like there was just like one way that a Mormon woman should be, and it is in service to the patriarchy. There's been like a man is still free to explore, creatively, career-wise, like in all these ways, and like while a woman like props him up. Like that's the whole system. Again, they're swimming in it, so they can't see it.
And the woman is just to offer herself as a bodily sacrifice for patriarchy and reproduction. And
I don't know the woman that he's married to, and so like I can't speak for her, but I just think it's like deeply fucked up that gay men have been taught that they should marry women, because that's like commodifying women in that.
Yes, totally.
Whether or not maybe she's like thrilled with the I can't say how she feels, but I'm like, it's deeply fucked up to even ask that of a woman, to like forego her like need for authentic sexual connection and like having a partner who's attracted to her the way a straight man would. Like it's just like deeply fucked up.
I do believe women have been marginalized, and men have asserted their authority and power over them in unrighteous ways and unrighteous dominion, right? But I think that has definitely changed, especially like, not to get into the specifics of the temple, but the temple used to say that women are basically subject to their husbands and have access.
For the majority of the church's history. The majority of the church's history. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, again, it's not
incidental. It's like this was the majority of the time. This church led by God, Jesus Christ himself.
One true church. It's called the Patriarchal Order of the Priesthood.
To say that women are basically subject to their husbands and have access to God through their husband.
And they would veil their faces as well.
That's not there anymore.
Give it up for the Mormon church for doing the bare minimum.
I know. It's like, that's not there anymore. And it's like, well, earlier you brought up Paul to try and like justify how great this church is.
Hey, if Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother are co-creators, co-gods, she's not subject to Heavenly Father.
In Judaism, really quickly, women can be rabbis. And I don't know if...
She is on fire.
And I don't know if within the next
Depending
decade.
on the staff.
Sure, I can't see women being bishops.
Personally, when I go to my church, when I'm in my ward, when I come to church, I sit down, everybody leading the church is a male, and the only female you'll see on the stand, she is playing the organ. And when she's not playing the organ, she comes back down and she'll sit with her family.
Ooh, we got a Mormon feminist on our hands.
We do.
Because she didn't answer. She didn't say yes to our men and women equal in the church.
Also, I hate when Christians use the term Judeo-Christian values trying to validate their beliefs. They're projecting their beliefs onto Judean culture because Jewish culture and beliefs are actually way different than most Christian beliefs. Stolen valor, as it were.
Yeah.
I want to know why you chose to stay back, because I thought that was very significant.
Because I agree. I don't believe they're equal. Like just like what I said, she goes up, she plays the organ, she comes back down, and all you're left with is men until other women come up later on to bear their testimony or sing something.
How have you felt your involvement has been as a woman?
My involvement, I was involved in the youth. I was like a secretary, only secretary of the women's, obviously.
Very significant that the one Mormon woman there is saying they're not equal. But
there-
the two men are like, no, they are.
If a Mormon man chooses to contradict her after this, it's just going to
be too good, I know.
Women and men in the church, I do believe that they hold more power. I feel like it's not as inclusive as it should be.
So it seems like both sides can agree that, the debate is on whether it's unequal or not, but they do have different roles and responsibilities. In that instance,
I think that-
I'd like to speak on
did that
that.
impact whether you left or not?
I think it did impact my involvement in the church in general, because what I love the way that you're explaining is like a kid can sit in church and see who is in charge. A child can. Even being raised, becoming a teenager, you were only involved with the women. Even being like all of these levels, all the way up to a level of an adult of being married, of you can only practice your sexuality once you're married to a man. Only can you have sexual relationships once you're married to a man. Like it's very clear that we as women are seen very differently. And not only that, but even the concept of a heavenly mother that we talk about, they just told us that we're not allowed to pray even to a heavenly mother. We're not even allowed to, it's not brought up, we don't talk about it. And that just so clearly displays the difference of we only speak to God the Father. We don't speak to God Mother, we don't talk about her. And what's funny is it's all of the white men who are telling us why. It's always the white men who are telling us where our level is. It's the white men who are saying, oh no, you have equal priesthood, but you can't sit on the stand, you can't pass the sacrament, you can't bless people, can't baptize people.
I'm sorry, but that is a Judeo multiracial.
It's multiracial, so it's fine.
Jews notoriously their own ethnicity.
It's a biblical teaching that wasn't just instituted by white men. That you may disagree with it, and that's fine.
Sexist nonetheless.
The Bible is men. The Bible is written by men. The Bible is about
By
men.
men, for men, about men.
It literally only refers to humans as men in the Bible. Like it wasn't even. It didn't even say people. It would be like men are. Even the Book of Mormon is like men are that they might have joy. It's like women were literally such an afterthought that men was like the default for people because they were the main people are men.
There are two types of people in this world: men and harlots.
Sexist nonetheless.
You may disagree with it, but the fact of the matter is that there always is someone who presides, okay? And the scriptures say that the one who presides in the household is the man, but presiding doesn't mean is.
All this, anytime he's like using, again, Bronze Age mythology to validate the like batshit things he's saying.
That seems to be his main justification. Is just like. It's in the Bible, so it's fine.
I know Mormons feel like they're the masters of scriptures and they all get it, but like literally every Christian denomination and every Hindu and every Muslim has their scriptures, their Bronze Age texts that are very real to them, and it's like it just literally doesn't matter. And the way that you're interpreting it, if God wanted things done in a certain way, it would just be so easy and so clear. But instead, it's like, oh, a bunch of dudes 500 years after the events decided to write down what they thought was happening in a foreign country in a foreign language, and now the king is translating it and telling it, and that's the way that God works sometimes. It's just men and kings who are like killing you if you don't believe, instituting his thing so that we could read that it's what God wants is for men to preside at all times. And it's like, that is so fucking dumb. That's a dumb God you worship.
He stepped forward for men and women are equal, and then he's like, someone has to preside, and it has to be men.
It just
like,
has
what if
to.
again?
They literally have penises.
Just the cult-like thing of just recasting language. So to him, equal doesn't mean equal. Homophobic doesn't mean homophobic. Racist doesn't mean race. You know what I mean? There's just like a different definition for every single word.
Mean is higher than, okay, or has more power over. It means the husband has to ensure that the needs of the household are taken care of spiritually and temporally.
But it's the
But
woman
why?
but it's the woman who keeps a household functioning. Like, according to these traditional Judeo-Christian gender roles, like, that's a woman's role, is to keep the household functioning.
And he works with his wife to do that. But it doesn't mean he has more power over her.
But it literally does. Like, Brigham Young literally said to all of his wives, because they were all deeply unhappy because they're in such a fucked up situation where they were forced to marry him, he was like, if you guys don't stop complaining in the next 2 weeks, you'll all be kicked out of this territory. Like, we have endless fucked up sexist quotes from prophets and apostles saying that this was like God's will. So now just this recasting of like, that doesn't mean that, you know, he has any more power. It's like, it literally did.
That
Like,
is
again,
how do you define
you've
power?
just
What is power?
invented a completely new framework for what power means. Yeah, once again, just literally having to change the meaning of every single word to get out of everything.
Power is just literally the ability, like, dictionary definition is the energy to do work, the ability to do work, to accomplish things, to get from point A to point B. And the fact is that women cannot accomplish things, cannot do things, do not have actual, literal, visceral, true power in the LDS Church because it's kept from them. And you can go on and on about how, like, oh, we value them the same, but when it comes down to actual material, physical, literal power, it's just not there. And you have to be a fool doing mental gymnastics to win a gold medal to think that it is. Let's do that scene from Under the Banner of Heaven where Joseph Smith is blessing Emma and he's like, and if you don't listen to these teachings, you will be destroyed. And it's like, men do use the priesthood for manipulation all the time. Bishops do use their office for manipulation all the time. Check floodlit.org. Women don't even have the chance to be able to abuse it because they don't have the power.
And you can do all this like no true Mormon bullshit, but it's like, yeah, a woman in the Mormon church does not have the same ability to like abuse a child and get away with it as a man, because she doesn't, like, baked into the culture is opportunities for like men to abuse their power. Like, if a grown man is in a room with a 12-year-old girl, he inherently has power over her in that situation. If a grown man is in a room with a grown woman and he's there is power in that situation, whether you like are able to acknowledge it or not. Like, it's just complete bullshit to be like, no, because we all value the same. It's like, if the power wasn't there, then how has there been so much rampant abuse of power? So clearly that power is a real thing, but for some reason you're trying to pretend that it doesn't exist.
I remember trying to be an apologist and being like, it's like, it just sucks because it's almost like they're trying to defend the sexual predators. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And then I was like, oh, this whole thing was literally set up for this end. Like, it was invented by male sexual predators to protect and facilitate male sexual predation. And even though it may not be as overt or as celebrated these days or like sought out by the higher ups in the same ways, though it still has echoing reverberation effects that like are felt by women in the church, obviously.
This little conversation right here is a microcosm of my Mormon experience, which is it's men having the power, men dominating the conversation, and then telling women why they're more important while they're mostly silent.
When you were speaking about Heavenly Mother, when I first was speaking with the missionaries and learning more about the church,
Damn, like most of the Mormons are converts here, which is interesting.
obviously you're always talking about Jesus Christ and the Heavenly Father and all of the Holy Ghost and all these things. And I don't know where, but I was thinking about it, I came across it, and I was like, well, I wanted to learn more about Heavenly Mother. And it was probably a 1.5 minute conversation because, we don't know anything about Heavenly Mother. I was like, well, why do we know all these things and we don't know anything about Heavenly Mother? I was like, she should be equally important.
Again, back to the fish water thing. It's like, for men in the church, it's so normal and like completely valid to them that they've never, Heavenly Mother, Heavenly Father, they're supposedly these equal partners, but we never hear about Heavenly Mother, which means like every woman is having to look up to a man as her, like, what I should be like. That doesn't even register to them as a problem.
Right.
And they don't understand, like, how when a child is taught that from birth, like how that conditions them to favor the opinions of men and to like devalue themselves. Like, they can't even wrap their minds around that.
I think like
they can't even see it. It's so reasonable to
the
them.
disciplinary council thing alone, like
Yeah.
knowing that every time a woman or man is judged in the church by a disciplinary council,
It's by men.
It will always be by men. Every woman will be judged by a panel of 12 or so men every time.
I couldn't fathom how we knew little to nothing about
It's not even that we speak less of her, it's we don't
We don't
speak
speak
at
of her.
all.
Yes.
We're not allowed to. We're not even allowed to pray to her.
Well, I would, well, just because you're not allowed to pray to something other than, and by the way, not allowed, I think that's a misrepresentation too. You have free agency, you can do whatever you want, but just because we don't have codified prayer to somebody other than our Father in heaven.
Just be kicked out for apostasy, like some members of the September 6th.
Well,
Jesus
I
told
actually
us
got a
not.
question for you. I got a question for you, girls. The division, okay, so this always atrophies into a priesthood argument. But do you think it's possible to have equality with a division of labor, or would equality be achieved in your mind with women receiving the priesthood? And then I have a follow-up. This just came into my mind, this isn't a gotcha, but what would satisfy your definition of equality? Must the women be given the priesthood and that's the hill we're dying on here? Or is there any other definition that would satisfy you?
I think just being
You women are just never satisfied. You just want to take and take and take and take, and you can't just compromise with being second-class citizens.
Like, is there some kind of new vacuum or something we could give you that would kind of make you feel better about what? Does it have to be the priesthood, or is it? It's not a gotcha question.
I feel him leaning to the are you going to be expected then to help people move every Saturday with the elders' quorum?
I think just being able to see at least one woman up there leading the congregation.
Don't even say at least one. Like, it should be an equal number of men and women in leadership positions. Like, she is still a believer, right? And she's like, but so it's pretty brave of her to be speaking up about this. But her definition of equal is seeing at least one woman, which is right in line with all that research. So when a man, or it's when women speak 33% of the time, men perceive them as talking 50% of the time. And when women speak for 50% of the time, men perceive them as talking the majority of the time. Even her expectation for what equal should look like is way too low of a bar. Just at least one woman, that's not enough, you know? But it's
We do need one token
even
woman
in her
leading the-
fantasy of what equality might look like, she can only dream of at least one woman being up there. Not to nitpick, but I do think it's interesting though, because I'd be the exact, equal. It doesn't have to be 50, It needs to be generally equal.
And then it's well, then what about the division of labor in the household? Are women going to be expected to go maintain all the leadership positions too? And then what about their husbands? It's maybe everyone would do well to scale back all the shit, unnecessary shit they're doing.
Out for themselves instead of being dictated by this church, which is definitely not controlling.
Women up there leading the congregation for at least half of the
Well,
church
define
time.
leading,
I could agree with
what's...
that.
Having an important job other than
I think
playing
the women
organ.
are only allowed
Teachings.
to be leaders of the women, whereas the men can be leaders of both men and women
Lead
above all.
the church.
So if women could have higher up roles where they are given more responsibility and more people in the congregation to care for and look after and given more
Positions of power.
positions of
Something
power.
equivalent to the
Yeah.
priesthood. Maybe
Okay.
not the priesthood, but at least equivalent.
So
Why not the priesthood?
Because it's for penises only. It says in the mythology.
I love
just
seeing-
read the mythology.
This guy's just really trying to wrap his head around this.
then what would you call, for example, Sister Espinaus? I can't name the heads of Relief Society, but the young women I can because I'm a little bit more aware of it because I have children that are youth. But Sister Espinaus, Emily Bell Freeman, all of these
A wife, on the other hand, I do
I
not have.
remembered some women's names.
women that have wildly powerful positions within the...
I'd say
Wildly powerful.
They still are under the jurisdiction of men.
It literally men choose them, and they report to men. They get to choose what centerpieces go on the table and what sandwiches
I
to serve
know.
to the male leaders.
Also, when they do priesthood sessions, they don't have women talk. But when they do women's sessions, there's always a lot of men that talk. And in the regular general conferences, majority
like
men
96.4%?
talking. And when women talk, it's mostly just to prop up the patriarchy.
I mean, Emily Bell Freeman is probably one of the single most powerful Mormons in the world.
I highly doubt that. I bet if she steps a toe out of line of what the men want, she will be swiftly removed.
I'd say if she put something out on Instagram, it would probably have almost as much pull as Russell M. Nelson in the Pacific Northwest and this side of the Rockies. So
Where would her power go if it wasn't in service of the man? If she went against the man, what would happen?
Exactly.
if we were to give just women the priesthood magically all of a sudden right now, it seems like these arguments kind of come from a politically secular leftist stance.
They look like an ad. This is really pretty.
They do. They all look like models. Oh, I love how his thing is this is starting to sound, this is just wokeism actually, so it's invalid.
Of representation, which I get, I understand. Movies are cooler when you see somebody that looks like you in it. I get that. But then would you want to preach from a Bible that's almost written wholly and completely by men? At that point, would the demands of equality require that we have equal representation in the books? There's only one book of Esther.
Yeah, it would
Yes,
inspire
it
us to
would.
get some new revelation.
Wait, what What was he just saying? Like, would you want
He's like, what? If we're gonna change the authority of it exists presently, then what? Are we gonna have to change the scriptures that were written entirely by men to get scriptures from women? And it's like, yeah, that'd be a damn good start.
He's like, this system is so baked in, we could never get away from it. Yes, exactly.
We'd have to replace the book where men are taught how they're allowed to sell their children into slavery and how they're superior to women and how they can commit genocide in the name of God, and that's fine? You want us to just do away with that?
Now we'll take one book out of the Septuagint and ignore the Book of Mormon because there's not a single one that's written by a woman. Like, I don't see, unless we accept the dichotomy that there can be equality with a division of labor, I don't see where...
Makes you think, doesn't it?
I love how you can only imagine taking away men's books rather than adding in women's books.
Right.
Again, just interesting the way that people choose to speak.
I don't see where it ends even after giving women the priesthood. And this is an honest...
Slippery slope.
The whole fucking division of labor thing, it's not like, oh, we're just gonna team up and we're going to the grocery store and I'm gonna grab the milk while you grab the eggs. It's like, the division of labor is, there's this class that gets to decide what happens to everybody, and this class can never choose what labor gets divided to them. They have no say in what they get to do. It's always a dictating top-down. It's not a collaborative partnership relationship.
I think it's even taking a bigger step back from even just having a position of power. But like, first of all, yes, I do think that women should be able to be a position of power. It is the whole doctrine of the church that how women are seen and how they were treated. It's bigger than just a position. It's how they are treated. It's like, these are their responsibilities. This is the woman's responsibility. In the doctrine of the family proclamation, it says very clearly what a woman's job is and what a man's job is. And guess who wrote that? Bunch of white men. Did any of the women get to write that or present it? No, the men did. Do women get to even be a prophet? No, there's never been a woman prophet. And so we always have these assumptions, but it really is how women are treated in general and how they are seen of their position in the church as a whole, not just by, okay, you can be over all the women. Congrats, you have a big Instagram. It's bigger than that.
Yeah. Should we?
Yeah, I think that's where we pause it. We've got 17 minutes left. I do want to watch it together because I can't bear to watch it alone. Should we take the rest of this over to Patreon?
Let's do it.
Okay, beautiful. Join us on Patreon to watch that. You can pledge any amount to get access to all our bonus content there. So when you go to sign up, it will say like suggested donation is $10, but you can do whatever you want. Join us in Costa Rica in September. We have to go to a meeting right now for that. So
it'll be a lot more fun than this, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Congrats to all the people in this video that made it somewhat tolerable to watch. Good for you guys.
Yeah, ex-Mormons, y'all really slayed. And Mormons also had occasional moments of slay too.
Yep.
Congrats.
Surprising performance from Kwaku. Interesting. Can't wait to watch the next 17 minutes with you guys.
Love you.
Love you. Bye. Thanks for joining.